Workshop meeting of the Township of Aleppo, February 10th, 2020 to order. Welcome.
Thank you.
All rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Roll call.
President Jones,
Here, present.
Commissioner Dara,
Present.
Commissioner Haluka,
Present.
Solicitor Lovato,
Present.
and Manager Patterson.
Okay, for our guests, all of our meetings are recorded. They're then uploaded to YouTube. You can watch them as a digest anytime, forever, so just be aware you're being recorded. Do I hear a motion to approve the January 20th?
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion?
On the discussion of the funding for the meter replacement, the minutes read 75,000, it should read 35,000, so it asked that the minutes be so amended. I
And
make
we'll
that
correct.
request in the form of a motion. Second?
Second.
Any further discussion? Just that we'll correct that also in the motion when we approve the funding.
We need to vote to it.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? So as promised, we're going to skip to new business, the parking regulations. Has everyone signed in? And when you speak, please go to the podium, announce your name and address. So Gwen, why don't you start with a summary of what this ordinance is?
This is an amendment to the township zoning ordinance that would create a new definition that would be allowed in the C2 district. So the new definition would create parking area commercial that would be an open off-street area other than a private road or way with adequate means of access used exclusively for the parking of licensed vehicles serving the owners of lots located within the C2 commercial industrial district, but not exclusively for the parking of automobiles of occupants for the premises or accessory to principal structure as a conditional use in the C2. So it's allowing a new lot to be a freestanding parking lot.
And the Planning Commission addressed this because?
Because there's been a lot of talk, it's obviously Amazon is here now, and there are a lot of vans that are all over the place, and they're trying to find locations for the vans. And so the owners of the industrial park are looking for ways to accommodate the vans here locally in the industrial park versus having them spread out all over the entire valley.
And the Planning Commission accepted?
They voted to move it forward, voted to recommend approval.
Is somebody here from the Planning Commission?
I was the no vote.
Would you like to tell us why?
My name is Fred Gregorich. I live at 546 Glenfield Road, and the reason I don't care for it is because it encompasses the entire C2 zoning district, which St. Mary's Church, and there's a few other properties down on Glenfield Road that are in that C2, and it's all part of C2. You look a little bit surprised, I don't know. But anyway, so that would give the church the ability to lease their lot out, which they have been approached. We've talked to the pastor on Saturday, my wife and I, and he said that someone did approach the church. He thought it was a contractor who actually delivers for Amazon, and asked the church if they could rent the lot. So they have been approached. So, that road down there, it's a small little road. We have school buses that stop on Ferry Road, so that good chance they'll be using Ferry Road. there was, the Public Works crew from Aleppo picked up all this litter along Redgate Road, and they found 23 water bottles, and there was urine in them. So these guys are, I don't know who's doing it. I mean, I'm not gonna point the finger at them, but why all of a sudden we have, water bottles used as bathrooms? And we don't think that the area can sustain traffic like that. The road's not in the best of shape. We got a building down there that somebody built that looks like it's half done. The whole, it's like we don't belong to Aleppo, that they just, things happen down there that don't seem to be done correctly. So I personally don't want to see this happen down there. So there's a way to do this ordinance, to amend this ordinance without including that district. You could do it as an overlay that would just encompass the industrial park.
And what did the other planning commission members respond?
They voted to pass to accept the amendment.
Did they give you a good reason?
No, I did most of the talking. I think they just wanted to go home, to be honest with you.
Did they deal with the overlay idea?
We brought it up, and it didn't seem like a thing that possibly the engineer or the solicitor felt that they wanted to do. I don't know if it seemed like there was pressure being put on the township to pass this zoning amendment, because that was said at the meeting that the industrial park is pressuring the township. I don't know if there's any truth to that, but that was said at the meeting. I don't know if it's trying to be fast-tracked through, because I already see Amazon trucks at a parking lot or a building on Overlook. Now, I don't know if they're leasing that. I think it's 209 Overlook. Came up here Sunday and looked around, and there's some vans parked down there. They might be leasing the building, I don't know, but I don't know if the township's aware of that.
Gwen?
Yes.
Go ahead. You have a question?
I wondered if you had any comment about Overlook or anything else that was said.
We do know that we have seen vans down there. We don't know we're not aware of what contracts may be out there, but we do know that there are some what look like white box trucks, or box vans down.
Well, these ones are gray and they say Amazon on them.
No.
I have a picture of them if you want to see it. They're parked down there. There's, I don't know, about four vans we saw. So, I mean, you could,
Industrial park is the buildings up here are commercial use. I would say the only difference would be down at St. Mary's is that the principal use at St. Mary's is a church and not a commercial building, so that would create another layer between what they would have to do versus the buildings.
St. Mary's Church is a commercial use. It's not a residential use. By definition, it is a commercial use. So, I know there's regulations you have to go through to make a parking lot, but you could do this with just an overlay district to keep it in the industrial park.
Overlay?
Gwen, who opposed the overlay?
There was a discussion that they wanted to make sure that it would not be a spot zoning issue, so
Yeah,
they
that's
would
what
want to pursue
I
that
know they're-
further. It's not as easy as just deciding to be an overlay. I think if that was the route that was taken, it would have to go back and be designed in a way that they would have to be careful with that.
Right, I know that they're not often used for that purpose, but with regard specifically to the church, I think they did ask before, and it was denied because it wasn't an express use, I believe, correct?
Right.
Okay, but is also an issue of potentially having two principal uses on one lot, which would not be an issue with where they're discussing now, but it would be with the church, because it wouldn't be they wouldn't split the parcel, they would just have the church, and you'd end up having a parking principal structure and a church principal structure. So that may be another way around this specific issue, if the board's interested in pursuing that, to explicitly state in your zoning ordinance that you can only have one principal use per parcel.
Well, that's what this zoning ordinance amendment's gonna do, is allow them to use an accessory use as a basically principal use.
It was my understanding, is this not a standalone lot, Gwen?
It's not, it's part of the same parcel. The church is all one parcel.
I'm not talking,
No, I think what he's asking is the
Where Amazon's-
amendment talking about just standalone parking lots, which I don't think there are any over in Industrial Park. They're all parking lots that were built for the buildings.
Commercial, parking, I'll read it, I don't know if I can interpret it,
Okay.
so I'm gonna read it and you can interpret it. Parking area commercial, an open off-street area other than a private road or way, used exclusively for the parking of licensed vehicles serving the owners of lots located within the C2 Commercial Industrial District.
okay, I'm not exactly sure what they're looking to rent though, I guess.
Who?
Amazon.
It would be the
I
parking
think they're
lot
looking,
attached to
they're
the
looking
church.
to, well, right now, this was aimed at allowing Amazon to create lots up here that they could not currently create. They could take a grassy parcel, turn it into a
Right.
parking lot.
That was my
that's not
understanding. That it would be a
attached to their building.
standalone
I
Standalone,
understand
lot.
what he's saying.
yeah.
with only one use on the lot, as opposed to it being added on to an existing use
So we
like
could
the
exclude
church.
it by not permitting dual use.
Right, you'd have to have it on a specific standalone lot. That was my understanding what Amazon was looking to
Read that
do.
again, what's the word
That's not what
exclusive?
is it, how it was
Parking
explained to
area
me at the
commercial,
planning
an
meeting.
open off-street area other than a private road or way with adequate means of access, used exclusively for the parking of licensed vehicles serving the owners of lots located within the C2 Commercial Industrial District.
Doesn't that, if it has to be, the lot's used exclusively, the parcel's used exclusively for serving commercial users in the industrial park, how could you do that it's not gonna be the exclusive use of the church uses that parking lot every day.
According to that, the church would be not permitting their own people to park in their parking lot if they created a parking lot under that ordinance.
Right.
Their own people wouldn't be able to park in the lot, according to what the ordinance says. It may already be excluded.
They could rent a portion of their lot with that amendment. That's how it was explained to us by,
No, I think you're correct.
We could fix it that way.
Right, I guess my
Okay.
question is if I think there's a little ambiguity in the ordinance as to whether you can have two principal uses on one lot. You can state it expressly in your ordinance that you can only have one principal use per lot. I guess the question I have is what is the intention? Is this going to be like a subdivided lot or specifically like a separate parcel that they're going to rent? Or is it just going to be part of a larger parcel?
I think that this is not coming, the interest in this was not coming from the Amazon ownership, it was coming from the owners of the industrial park.
Okay,
So they own a lot of the parcels up here, so they wouldn't have to, they would then, the industrial park would manage who they rented the lots to, so
I guess I'm not sure exactly how the industrial park is structured. Is it each rental is a separate parcel or is it just one?
a lot of them are separate parcels.
Okay.
There are a couple that are large parcels, there are a couple individual owners that are not owned, that are not what we call the industrial park. There are several buildings within the industrial park that are owned by individual entities and not the group that owns the bulk of it.
Are you saying there's a spot zoning issue if this was restricted to lots within the industrial park or an industrial park?
I think if you, I'm not as familiar with overlays as Harlem, but my instinct would be the same there, that it would be potentially a spot zoning, because it seems like it's more for historical purposes and not just to solve individual zoning problems.
What's the difference between a principal use and exclusive use?
Exclusive use is not a defined thing. in
Right.
our zoning
Well,
ordinance.
but if it's not defined in the code, then it
Principal and
gets its
accessory.
ordinary dictionary meaning. Exclusive is exclusive.
It's exclusive of all else.
Yeah.
Gwen, would you also explain the two ordinances that are on the agenda tonight and also the overall zoning review that's going to occur next year,
So we have
this year?
the two amendments that are on here right now are zoning ordinance amendments that would just be incorporated into the existing zoning ordinance. We have budgeted for and asked for a proposal from HRG for a comprehensive zoning rewrite. As soon as this ASO comprehensive plan is finished, then we would embark on a zoning ordinance rewrite that would take into account all the things that we've figured out over the last 10 years. And, you know, we all have lists of things tweaks that we would want to make to the zoning ordinance. And the planning commission has already said that they want to start meeting on that monthly, so there'd be a meeting in March to get that together. So these two, from what I understand, are being thought of as just to consolidate into the existing zoning ordinance. Then the whole zoning ordinance as a whole is going to be looked at and picked apart piece by piece and reevaluated and rewritten during the year, but that's a much longer process. It takes a while to do that.
Let me ask a question of those folks here that are interested in this parking lot issue. Is your objection go to the parking lot entirely, or is it to using lots outside of the industrial park for parking lot purposes?
I'm assuming,
Please.
yeah, I'm John Travelzone, 516 Landfill Road. I agree with Fred if it's possible that we could just have it for the industrial park. You know, I mean, we all spoke about it, and I think that would probably be the best for the parking problem with Amazon. I mean, they're up here anyhow, right?
Right.
You know, you're gonna shuttle them all over your township, you know, I mean, that's kinda crazy. I understand they're being shuttled from Leetsdale up here now, so, you know, I don't know, you know.
I have a question that I don't know the answer to. Is it spot zoning
Harlan did
To-
say spot zoning, his concern was spot
to
zoning.
exclusive, like to set it to just like one ownership area? Like if the zoning district is this big, but somebody owns this, is
Oh, I
it
mean,
spot zoning
I think
to
the spot zoning,
stick it with just one ownership group?
I think the spot zoning concern is anytime you do the overlay, he's also concerned, I think there's a more costly process associated with, doing the overlay. It would require a study. And there are like, from what I've seen, it's more based on historical need, not necessarily to solve a
But
problem like
wouldn't the
this.
use of exclusivity actually solve that problem? You wouldn't need the overlay if the wording of the ordinance was that it could only be used for a single use exclusively. Because then if the people who owned the church or ran the church would decide to rent it to Amazon, they would be excluding their own people, which I would assume would never happen. So you wouldn't have to do an overlay if you made it a single use.
I do think if
Am I
that's.
interpreting you right?
No, I
It'd be
think that's,
easier.
yeah,
Wait, we're kind of guessing.
sure.
Did you have something else to say?
Well, that's, what you're stating is sort of what they're doing with this amendment. Most of the lots over there are exclusive, they're accessory structures, they're accessory uses to the principal use. When somebody builds a warehouse, say, the ordinance will require you have to have X number of parking spaces based on square footage or occupancy or whatever it may be. So that's your accessory use to the principal use. So what the ordinance is saying, now you can take that accessory use and rent it to anybody. You can lease it to anybody to use that accessory use, basically turning it into a principal use.
I think we're saying the same.
You can't lease it to just anybody, because it doesn't say that it's,
Exclusively.
well, not only says exclusively, it also says that it's associated with the person who got control of the lot.
So then why do it at all then? I mean, I don't understand what the purpose of it is.
No, it is addressing a problem up here.
Right.
That's the reason this occurred. Correct, Gwen?
They want to, instead of having a situation where you have a lot with a building on it, it's the primary use, and you have parking as an accessory use, the industrial park owner has lots that he wants the primary use to be for parking, period. Not accessory to.
That he can lease to whoever wants to lease it,
Yes,
namely Amazon.
right.
And that applies to the church because it's in C2.
I don't think it meets criteria, but I think we need to give council a chance to address, we understand what the issue is, I think
Right.
we need to figure out how to solve
Yeah.
the issue.
I think the reason I wanted Gwen to talk about the two zoning processes that are ongoing is that prior to the meeting, we were trying to figure out how to do exactly what you're asking. Seems to me like there's even some clarification needed on the legal opinion. But the essence of it is, there is a problem up here that this addresses. We don't want to create a problem for you, correct?
That's correct,
And we need to find out how to legally accomplish that,
yes,
which will not occur tonight.
right.
Yeah.
We're here for discussing.
We know
Yeah,
that.
we're just here
It's not gonna be
in
solved
numbers,
tonight.
because I think
We're all.
everybody here lives on Glenville Road, I don't know about this gentleman here.
We live right next to the church.
So they have concerns.
Please.
My name is Jerry Gregorich. You say you have a problem up here. When these problems happen, I have to wonder, why would you let such a big organization such as Amazon in here when you have numerous small country roads that they're going to have to use and then inconvenience the tax-paying citizens? The litter, the traffic, the speeding, the unsafetiness for the children that live in the area. I mean, none of this makes any sense. And then the thought that Amazon would go and speak to a church down on Glenfield Road, which isn't hardly ever taken care of, with major factors that have happened in this township, such as sewage, water. Years ago, we had to fight tooth and nail to get water, and we have bacteria through our water. Nobody fixes the roads. I mean, we're just left out. And there is no reason for that to be happening. We live in this community, we live in this township, we pay taxes just like everybody else, and we should not be left out from certain things that are happening. And I think all these people here are including Ferry, are in this, feeling the same way. And so we're here as concerned citizens that we are going to stand our ground, and we do not want this to happen.
Are there any current lingering issues where you live?
Well, we don't have sewage. We should have sewage. My gosh, we're so close to the water table.
We've been
Of
begging
all
for
roads,
that.
we've flooded. I mean, of all roads in this township, we should have been right up there within the first 10.
Actually, at last month's Aleppo Township Authority meeting, there were representatives from folks in your area talking about, is there some way to connect the folks where you are to the sewage system?
That's great, but will it happen?
Well, the outcome of that meeting was we need to gather a bunch of information from those various municipalities that are looking to get into the Aleppo system.
And that's wonderful. For us to hear
Let us
that is
know what we
wonderful.
can do to promote
Yes.
that or whatever needs done. We've been begging
I
for
mean,
that.
the first step is to figure out whether it's economically feasible to do it.
I have to wonder, economically wise, or how we're living down there. I don't think economics can really fit into our situation for how we live and how close we live to the water table down there. It is something that should be addressed, and I know we're not here tonight to talk about that. But we are citizens down there that are tired of being neglected. And just this thing that's happening with the parking, it's silly. It's like, how in the world would you put
Well, I think
Amazon parking down there?
Well, I
to
don't
begin
think-
with.
I think we're trying to find a way to accomplish creating parking lots that are in the industrial park without creating parking lots that are in your neighborhood. We need to
Thank
figure
you.
out, we need to
I
figure
hope
out how to
so.
do
I
that.
think we're all saying the same thing.
Yeah,
Okay.
we appreciate that.
So-
All of us are caving in now.
Yes.
Chris, what would you recommend at this point?
Well, we need to look into this issue. I understand the specific issue, because we're only concerned with the church, not if it's entirely within the industrial park, correct?
It's in C2.
Right. Right, I understand the church is in C2 and then the industrial park is in C2.
Correct.
But your concern is if the parking were to leak out to the church.
Yeah, that's because it's, you know, when it says in C2, it includes
Right.
that area. Well, not only the church, but there's a couple other properties down there too, which they don't have parking lots, but that's
We need to
also.
have council have an opportunity
Sure.
to look at that to see how we can do that without losing a legal challenge.
Right, because that is something to always think about, that there
Well,
are,
yes, I
especially
agree.
with a company like Amazon.
So the planning commission has approved. They've recommended it to the commissioners. This is our first discussion.
Right.
Gwen, what is the process for approval or not?
Once you have a draft of an ordinance that you guys are comfortable with, then you authorize the advertising, and then there's 2 consecutive weeks of advertising and a public hearing with a court reporter before it's adopted.
So there was nothing intended for tonight, nothing intended for next week?
No, nothing intended, no, not at all.
So we have time,
Yes.
and we appreciate your comments.
And if we make changes to the existing draft, does that need to go back to the planning commission for approval before we move forward with noticing and public comment?
I think they're going to the planning commission to get a recommendation. I don't think they're required to give you a recommendation, but that is generally the process we follow.
Right.
So in terms of timing, we could try to do that soon, so the planning,
Soon, because the planning commission will be meeting on March 4th, so it would be a good time to get everybody back. If they're
And then
gonna be
we would
meeting anyway, get a new draft in front of
be
them.
back here next month perhaps with a better solution for everybody.
Okay, I don't think we need a motion, but we'll authorize the solicitor to act as he just stated prior to the next planning and zoning committee meeting. And if there's anything in writing that you could pass along to Gwen, if you have something to contribute, please do.
Like a petition?
No, well,
Or,
everybody's on the same page here. We're
Okay.
trying to find out some way to prevent this legally.
Ideas.
In other words,
Okay.
when you talk about Amazon, the township can't tell the owners of the industrial park who can come and who can't.
I understand that, but.
If they violate rules, I mean, there's a letter in the packet tonight. We're very much aware of the traffic problems. We're very much aware of the Coke bottles, and we're addressing them. And Amazon, to some extent, I think Gwen can speak more directly to this, is very cooperative. They're dealing with independent contractors as drivers. But it's complicated.
It is, but those drivers are their responsibility too.
Well, if
It's
they're,
an extension of them.
if they are cooperating, then why are they not speaking to their drivers about how they're driving on the roads?
They are.
How are they littering? Well, they say they are, but we're not seeing it, right? We're not, people can't get out of their driveways, litter,
You have to be
speeding.
careful, and as somebody that hires a lot of private contractors, as soon as you tell them not just the job that they have to do, as soon as you start telling them how to do their job, they become employees. And I'm 100% sure that Amazon does not want 4,000 van drivers as employees. For example, if I say to someone that I hire as a private contractor, I need you to prepare these packets and get them out. It's a private contractor. If I tell them they have to work on those packets from 8 a.m. until noon, and then they take a break and work from 1 to 4 to prepare those packets, and then put them in a car and go in this order to deliver them, they become an employee.
Would you please use the podium?
Sure. I actually work in transportation.
Your name, please?
Jake Ritchie, Ferry Road.
Thanks.
I actually work in transportation. What you're saying is correct in the independent contractor sense of if you were hiring them to work in the warehouse. But with transportation, you can set any guidelines. for instance, we do a lot of construction deliveries. We have set instructions on how those trucks are to enter the area, what time they're supposed to be there. And it can get very restrictive, and I use exclusively independent contractors. There's nothing that would stop Amazon from telling their people, don't use Red Gate Road at all. They could very easily make that part of their package.
That's a good transition. If you would like to stay for one more session, or you can stay as long as you want. What I'd like to do then is to skip to your report on the speed, on the Amazon concerns, the road, the letter that we just received. There was a complaint from people that lived on Redgate, including a commissioner who isn't here tonight, about the Amazon vehicle speeding down Redgate and putting her children at the bus stop in jeopardy. Chief of Police has come up with certain actions that he might be able to take, but much to his credit, almost immediately he called a meeting, including Commissioner Richard and Gwen, and just discuss what occurred at that meeting.
Sure. We did meet, it was a representative from the Amazon facility. It wasn't the driver supervisor, it was the warehouse supervisor, but he has daily meetings with his people. He came over and we expressed our concerns about what we'd heard about the speeding up and down Redgate, the vans that were passing somebody driving on Redgate, the litter that's everywhere. Then we've also had some sound concerns, and obviously from the township alone, they drive through our yard all the time. We came in one Monday and then mailboxes were knocked over and signs are knocked over. So it's just stuff that doesn't have to be that way. So he was receptive, and he did write back to us as a follow-up after that meeting. Would you like me to read like the first paragraph here? Okay. So it says, thank you for the follow-up. This is from somebody over at Amazon. He's again added his on-the-road partners for visibility to this email chain. In partnership with my on-the-road team, we've asked our delivery service partners to avoid using Red Gate Road moving forward. We discussed this in a meeting yesterday and hope to see a significant decrease in traffic on that street moving forward. We're also working on signage to help drive this. I also asked them to address the trash concerns you brought up in the meeting. And I will say that the day after I got this email, the crew from Amazon went and cleaned up all of Deer Run Road. It wasn't our crew doing it. I've asked them to address the trash concerns you brought up. We've been talking about this during our stand-up meetings in the morning. We'll continue to address it moving forward. And potential doing community service events, supporting the removal of trash along Deer Run Road. Committed to frequently as needed address the concerns brought up in the monthly meeting from residents of the township, and thinks the best format would be setting up sometime directly following monthly township meetings to have a standing meeting with commissioners and Amazon to continually put in front of them the concerns that we have. I did send pictures we've sent pictures of trash, we've sent pictures of the delightful things that they find when they clean up, we've sent pictures of damage around, our property and things like that. So they are proposing to have a standing meeting with us to address concerns as we go. So we're definitely going to take them up on that, obviously.
I would add that the chief of police has been, at our request, has been to Amazon several times to talk to them about various issues. And at least as his reported back to us has been that the management there has been receptive to the concerns that have been raised. It includes not just traffic, but noise and all the other stuff that we've heard about. So it's something we've been working on. I think Amazon is trying to figure out how they can make themselves a better neighbor, but we just need to keep on them.
I do have one question.
Please.
Oh, okay. No, I could be wrong, but when I had seen Amazon advertising for drivers, they also say they do no background checks and they hire. So think about that. Who are they hiring? What do they have behind them as for driving? Right? They could have had DUIs, they could have had umpteen speeding violations. I mean, you have to put all these things in consideration of who you're dealing with. If they want to be a good neighbor and in the township, and they should hire people and check them, correct?
Well, I
Again,
don't-
just not our road, but numerous roads, children.
Where did you get the information that they don't check the drivers at all?
It was advertised in the paper. $16.95 an hour, no background checks.
Okay.
Can't be too much easier to hop on and get a job when you're looking for something.
I'm not particularly interested myself.
No, I'm not either. But, you know, I mean, you have to think, you're saying things, in theory, it sounds good, but you have to dig a little bit more here and see. And the problem that is arising in this community, if they were feasible drivers, I don't think they would be littering and speeding and crossing people on single lane roads, correct?
Well, one of the things that we've talked about is how to utilize what we pay for from the police department. They do various tasks for us. One of them is speeding control. One of the things that we've talked about is having an extra item in our budget to increase the amount of patrols that the police do. I mean, when the police chief comes to our monthly legislative meeting, he reports on their activities for the month, and it's always how many traffic citations have been issued. So they've been issuing traffic citations to those, including on Redgate Road. Hasn't necessarily cured the problem, but we're looking at different ways to address the situation, recognizing Amazon's business model is Amazon's business model. We're not in a position to dictate to them how to run their business.
That's not accurate though. Amazon is involved in 3 minority lawsuits over background checks for minorities. And here's how they advertise. Amazon's background check policy requires all finalists to complete criminal background searches, reference checks, and drug tests. Amazon's criminal background checks look back 7 years and consider any convictions considered felonies from that time.
Are you saying that's how they advertise?
That's what Amazon says they do.
Okay, well, I guess what they do, and then what they do is two different
Well, no, they
things.
must, because what I
know what I
found
saw.
is that they're being sued over doing
Background checks,
background checks on
minorities.
minorities. So minorities have sued them saying that they do background checks on them just because they're minorities. So yeah, you couldn't sue if they weren't performing those background checks.
So we're set on the initial issue. Stay tuned. You'll stay tuned because you're on the planning commission.
We'll be back.
And no, we appreciate
No, we'll
that.
stay, I'd like to stay, you know, in the loop. I think everybody here would like to stay in the loop, I guess, by coming to next,
What's the next meeting
Next
we
week's
should
meeting
attend?
I
Next
mean,
week? Or-
Monday.
there would be no vote next week because it's not been advertised.
Well,
so
maybe
there
a
would be no
discussion.
thing.
A discussion could happen, correct? Again, to make known that we are.
If we have
serious.
something back.
Okay.
I would think the next meeting.
Yeah, I mean, if, depending on what everyone says, if we're able to get something back and then, I mean, theoretically, there could be a motion next week to advertise it for the following month, depending on what the board wants to do.
I
Vote
post
on it
the agenda on the
until
website every Friday evening, afternoon and evening, so if there is something that's gonna be on the agenda for Monday, for the Monday night legislative meeting, you'll be able to see the agenda and see that there's something on there. And it's under the meetings button on our website, so click on meetings and then you can see the agendas for the upcoming meetings.
And Commissioner Dara just said, we think that the earliest this would come to vote is April.
Okay, so not in March.
Well, it would be an advertised public meeting, public hearing, to vote on the amendment.
Right.
I'm sorry.
I mean, if we're gonna consider a change and come back to the planning commission for its review and recommendation before we go to the public with it, that's gonna be at least April.
Is the township under some obligation to amend the zoning ordinance to adopt this amendment?
We have an obligation to respond to an application for a
Correct.
change.
So you know, the Board of Commissioners could vote to not amend the zoning ordinance if they felt, without any legal action? I mean, is that true, or is that, I guess you could be, you know, legal action could be brought against you for anything, but is it, I mean, why is this thing being considered though? I don't understand.
Would you say that if the amendment was limited to the industrial park, that doesn't help solve the problem that we're dealing with?
No, that's not what I'm saying. I'm just asking.
Well, I'm asking you,
Okay,
because you seem to suggest that it's a bad idea completely. That my initial reaction is finding a place for those cars and trucks and vans to park rather than having them roaming around our streets is solving a problem.
you might be solving one and creating another, I don't know.
But he's saying without creating the problem for Glenfield.
I'm
Well,
saying-
yeah, I
I'm
agree
saying
with that.
If you assume the change is limited to the industrial park,
That's what, yeah,
Would you
Right.
support it? I guess is his question.
I think so,
If they would
right?
just stay up here, you mean?
Yeah, if it's
Yeah,
limited
if
just to the
If the
industrial
parking was
park.
limited to the industrial park, would you
Oh,
support it?
we're kind of going in,
Because that is what the industrial, I'm
yeah,
sorry.
we're kind of going in circles again.
Uh,
We've concluded, everybody is in agreement. We want to solve the problem up here and not create a problem down there, period. In order to have some way of accomplishing that, we need the solicitor's opinion. Right?
Correct.
right?
Good. But again, thank you. And your comments about being left out, it's the first time we've heard it. So thank you for that too. And then you got a response showing that once it's identified, the authority immediately had people come to the meeting to discuss the solution. Okay?
I'm confused as saying this is your first time hearing, are you talking about the sewage? Is that the problem you're talking about?
No, we just ended that lawsuit.
Oh, okay.
No,
We were here before, that's why. I
Yeah,
was
we
wondering
came
what you
to
meant.
approach the commissioners
Yeah, I
about
don't
sewage.
think any of these commissioners were seated at the time.
Oh, I'm
They
sorry.
weren't, no, it was a
Okay.
different
It
board.
was
Right.
different.
That was
Okay.
2011.
But we're glad to hear that the Water Authority, or the Aleppo Authority, is working with possibly Swickley Hills and Glenfield Borough to try to do some joint project, which, that's a good way to do
And
it.
just so you,
It's just, I mean, what we asked them was to get to our authority engineer their Act 537 plans. So
and
maybe we
there,
can find them.
there are other changes occurring with the wastewater because Swickley just unanimously voted to shut their wastewater treatment plant down and go to Leachdale. Capacity is one of the issues. So it's changing again.
Plus, there's a little price tag to get from the Swickley treatment plant to the Leachfield treatment plant.
All right, well, you're welcome to stay as long as you want. We're going to move on.
Well, thank you for listening to us.
Yep.
Thank you.
Hello, Congressperson.
Hello.
All right, is there anything more on the Amazon concerns?
No, it's the same things, and want to share the response from Amazon.
You're welcome to stay, but I think
Okay, no.
I think the one issue you came to
Yeah.
discuss,
That's it.
we know what we need to do.
Okay, thank you.
Appreciate it. Thank you.
Yeah, look what you've done.
I take that personally.
All right, so, speed patrol proposal. Everyone saw that in their packet?
Yes. You have the proposal in your packet, and it wouldn't be voted on tonight, and none of this stuff would be really voted on tonight. But it's, Chief Haney submitted this in response to the conversation last month about having some extra patrol. So this.
And the extra patrols were primarily dedicated to Redgate?
It doesn't say that, it just
No.
says
But
if you
I
want
think it's
extra
why it
control.
came
This
up.
is anywhere you want it,
If
so
you
that's
want
why
it.
it came up. Yeah.
They're looking for us to order, to tell them where we want them to be.
Right, but I think we asked for the proposal due
Yes.
to the speeding on Redgate.
Right.
So I think give Redgate a couple of weeks.
Yeah, I was just thinking whether we should wait a little bit, given your meeting that you had with
Right.
the Amazon folks.
To see if the traffic really is,
Yeah, give it a couple of weeks.
less- I mean,
Yeah.
wait a couple of weeks.
But I think in general, we're all in favor of applying some of our budget to specific instances.
Yes.
All right,
So I'll put that on the agenda for next week?
yes, we might ask the chief
Yeah.
if he has any areas that he'd like to address. Deer management, Commissioner Darragh.
I reviewed what Chief Haney gave us. It's old news. It's the same thing that we saw a couple of years ago when we looked at the alternative. It just says, here's the alternatives, here's the pluses and minuses, and it doesn't actually adopt anything, although it makes you realize that some of the alternatives are not particularly effective.
The one alternative that actually the mayor's talking about, that we didn't realize we had the problem, we have a whole lot of residents feeding deer.
Yes.
People brought us videos of people literally throwing citrus off of their deck or you know, putting bird feeders out with the purpose of feeding deer, and then being upset when they eat our rhododendrons. But yeah, I mean, some education might just,
Right, well, can't the manor adopt a?
we have. We're gonna try to do some education at the end of it.
That's a good idea. I think,
I mean, if you want, you might get that brochure from Gwen.
And we actually had one of the enforcement guys come out 2 years ago, I think, to our annual meeting, you know, where we get 100 people or whatever. The guy came out from, whoever does that, the game commission, and did a whole talk for us on why it's not a good idea to feed deer, et cetera.
we had somebody here
But we might
too.
want a reminder.
I think we just hit on a good idea. Put some education on our webpage. When?
From the game commission or whatever, because I think these are well-intentioned people. They think they're helping the deer, when in fact they're not helping the deer at all, and they're
Right.
certainly not helping our community.
Well, if the homeowners are putting together an educational package, would you please make sure we have that? We'll put it on our
I
webpage.
actually think a couple of years ago, you did a survey in the manor.
Yes, we did, and it was the same
50-50.
survey that you did. It was about 50-50.
50-50.
Yes. 50% said we love the deer, 50% said please
Get
kill the
rid of
deer.
them. Yeah.
Swickley Leetsdale Sewer Plan Resolution. Dan, do you want to do that one?
Sure. We met with Dan Schlegel and, I forget, was it Scott?
Something, I don't remember his last name.
Yeah, anyway, he's there. He's the Leetsdale sewage plant manager. And Dave Kirchner was with us. We spent close to 2 hours discussing Schlegel's written submission. I came away from the meeting concerned about the accuracy of the numbers in the document that we got. His cost estimate, for example, for installing the 16-inch force main was about a third of what Dave Kirchner estimated or reported that he had a client just get on a bid.
That's not a little issue.
It's not a little issue. It's like going from $81 a foot to $220 a foot.
That's a big difference.
When we asked them about the accuracy of the numbers that they estimated if Swickley was to replace their facility, the answer was, well, these are the numbers I gave them. I didn't really have to go behind them. So it's pretty clear that Schlegel likes the idea of taking the sewage to Leetsdale. There was one alternative that he said they discussed with Swickley but didn't make it into print, which was for them to take over operating what will become Swickley's transmission and pumping facilities. Swickley doesn't want to be in the sewage treatment business, but for some odd reason, at least for now, they're saying they want to stay in the operating and maintenance issue, which makes no sense to me whatsoever. We asked what the resolution actually meant when it said, so we adopt Swickley's amended 537 plan as part of our 537 plan. And they were going to get back to us on that. Dave Kirshner had 5 or 6 or 7 pages.
They didn't know what that meant.
What is the legal effect of saying we adopt?
You probably should know that before you adopt it.
Well, we needed to know that. Well, maybe we should change the word. Well, what word are you going to use? We don't know. Anyway, Dave Kirchner had 6 or 7 pages of questions and comments that we left with Schlegel and asked him to get back to us, preferably in writing. He said we'd have it by Friday. That was a couple of days ago. We haven't seen anything. So that's essentially where we stand. You have questions on?
And Kirshner is also going to talk to the DEP because Bankston Engineering is currently finalizing the revision of our Act 537 plan. Now it's going to change again. Valerie, what we're talking about is, you probably are aware, Swickley voted unanimously to shut their wastewater treatment plant down. All the communities have to sign off on that. We were asked to sign off on that. Our engineer had some significant questions that are now being investigated and answered or not. And then the DEP is pulling out their hair.
Yeah, I heard some of that.
Do you have any insight?
I don't. I mean, that's kind of one of the reasons why I want to come to these meetings is
Okay.
want to hear where everyone, and not just that issue, but a couple of those issues you have on your agenda. That I do have some insight on some other stuff. So
Good.
I mean, it's a significant issue for the community because, for example, Schlegel said, well, we think we can accomplish what we need to get Leetsdale eligible to take the sewage by getting a re-rate of the facility. It would cost $1.1 million to do that.
after they just spent all that money.
But if the re-rate doesn't fly with the DEP, then the cost to expand the facility to make DEP happy is $5.3 million. I ask, are you going to guarantee that Aleppo's rates aren't going to go above what we currently have, since everybody else is supposed to be getting this great rate decrease due to the efficiencies and the like? No, we couldn't do that. So, I think we just need to wait and see what Kirshner gets back from Schlegel and what he has to say about that. And it could be that the reality is that it's actually cheaper for Swickley to fix its plant,
To keep it.
than to do this other deal, which,
If the DEP doesn't say it'll go at $1 million, I can't see them spending $5. Yeah, that doesn't make sense.
All right, so stay tuned.
yeah.
New street signs, Gwen?
We have some samples of our new street signs. They are installed at the corner of Weber Road and Parkway. So we would like everyone to go up and take a look at them. We're testing reflectivity, visibility, and aesthetics. So we have one version of the sign is white with green letters, and it has a logo, the logo on the side. And we have a green sign with white letters that has the raised logo on the top. And we have different, on the sides, the signs are two-sided. One side has the background reflected, and then one has the letters reflected. So just go up at night and go drive up Weber, all the way up to the top, and then you get to the stop sign at the top of Weber, and the signs are right there. Go around the block, look at them from both directions, so take a field trip, and let me know what you think about the signs.
And that request goes out to anyone that's watching or watches in the future. Deer Run Road drainage repair proposal. Sure.
This is what's HRG, the engineers were seeking a proposal because we discovered that the drainage pipe was collapsed down around the driveway to the package, or the pump station down on Deer Run Road. So they put it out, they did the specs and they put it out to bid, and they got 2 bids. One from WD Wright and one from Petrakis, and the WD Wright bid was lower bid, and so they are recommending that one. But you would vote on this next week, just because it's such a large expenditure, you wouldn't vote
And
tonight.
it's less than anticipated.
It is less than anticipated for the segment that we'll be addressing.
So I think we'll approve that next week.
And we'll put it on the agenda.
It is interesting that the high bidder is nearly 50% higher.
Although HRG has good confidence in the contractor with the low
Right.
bid.
And Wright has done work in the township before, so, and it worked out well. They did stuff on Swiftly Ridge Drive.
Swickley lot on Glen Mitchell Road. Commissioner Dara.
Well, I'm gonna bump it over to Gwen, because she's had the most recent communications with our friends at Sewickley.
So I met with them after the board voted to grant them the license, subject to the permit, subject to the fee and things like that. I went down and met with them and we discussed, I showed them a draft of the permit, explained that the fee check that they had submitted got stale dated, so they corrected that. And they did submit the fee, so they were issued the permit for the year 2020. We just said we're just gonna do it on a calendar year to help everybody, it's easier to manage. And we discussed vegetation and screening, and right now they were gonna have their public works supervisor and the manager were gonna go take a tour of the site, because she's relatively new to the site. And they're gonna get back to us in the spring, during planting season. We talked about screening, not necessarily along the road, but up on the upper part within the site.
I would be happy with, if they would tarp what they put there, with a tarp color that blends in.
We suggested, green tarps maybe, like nature colored tarps,
Instead
not
of the
blue.
white ones that they have there now.
Yeah, when I drive by, there's only a couple of things that really stand
Right.
out. So
It's got
address
the
the,
color.
address the
Pretty easy to-
specifics.
And they have, they did point out that they had cleaned up a lot over the last couple of years, and I said,
Yeah.
yes, they had.
Okay, so there's,
It was very positive.
there's
So,
progress.
Yes.
mission accomplished there.
Yes.
New business, the Act 172 real estate credits.
So all of the volunteer firefighters that submitted their documentation to get the property tax credits and the earned income tax credit, that process all went through. This is the second year that the township's offering that. So next week you'll have the list of the firefighters and their amount to be exonerated from their taxes. And then what happens is we will return the real estate tax portion to them via check. Their earned income tax, they claim that on their earned income.
Good. Police pension amortization change.
I'll say that I hope that all of you read this.
I did.
Thank you. You can explain it. So I can give the quick summary is that we have not, for several years, we have not had to make any contributions to the police pension plan, but now that we have multiple people retired on the plan and they're drawing every month, the actuarial.
And their earnings rate assumption turned out to be wrong.
Are wrong,
So we're currently underfunded.
currently underfunded, which is the first time we've been there in a while.
So we have 2 choices as to how to get out from being underfunded. We can make an immediate payment of what was $55,000 or $60,000 this year and see what happens when they review our funding next time around. Or we can opt to do a 10-year funding, which costs us like $14,000 or $15,000 a year. Although that gets reviewed annually as well, but you're on the 10-year plan as opposed to the current plan.
When is the first payment due?
It's April, I think.
The decision on this, the decision on whether or not to change it is due at the end of March. So you would need to declare adopt the change to the plan or the change to the amortization policy next month.
And there's a 2-year lag on the market, 1 year?
It's a 1-year lag.
Because I think we're going to catch up a little bit in 219. I think the adjustment is based upon the 218 market.
I don't know.
Anyway, there's a lag.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's,
So-
there's.
And the fact that, the fact,
If I read it correctly, you can opt into this 10-year plan
right,
anytime down the road. if you wanted to wait, you'd have to make the 50,000 payment this year.
Yeah, my thought is 10-year plan, because that'll kind of balance
It'll
out the
balance.
market fluctuations.
And they did point out that the only risk that they foresaw in doing this is if we were to reconstitute a police department, it would change the way the plan is valued, and we could be eligible for more, have a higher hit in future years were we to reconstitute the police department. But given that that's pretty low,
Which isn't,
low thought right now,
that would cost a little more than 55,000.
Should we deal with this next week?
I will find out if we need to advertise something. So it's a potential for the agenda. Otherwise, it'll be March. I have to find out from Mockenhop what we need to do to officially have you
You
guys
need a
approve
plan
this.
amendment.
Then probably it won't be on the agenda for next week.
Okay,
that
because
See, the memo says you need a plan amendment if you want to do that.
And yeah, and I know that she has it ready to go, but I have to check and make sure, I don't know if it's ready to go next week or
Right.
next month.
well, we can think about it, but I think our unofficial opinion is the 10-year plan. All right, Earth Day, once again, President Eric Schmidt. We had one Earth Day meeting. We're going to do it again. It'll be cleanup along some portion of Aleppo Township roads. We went into Glenfield last year, not really Glenfield, but we went to the interchange at Glenfield and we cleaned up a lot. We're going to do that again. This is the 50th year of Earth Day. Its topic is climate change, and the committee recommended that we put something on the webpage about the little things that everybody can individually do.
What's the date, Jim?
April 18th.
So it's things like turn off your lights, save some water, etc. Not big federal enacted taxes.
Shave some water if you've got a water bill later.
All right. We did the zoning ordinance parking regulations. So in other words, again, for people that are watching, when again the Earth Day will be on.
April 18th, 9 a.m., gather here at the Township Building.
We had a good gathering last year, and we cleaned up 90-some garbage bags.
Yeah, well, that plus garbage bags, plus tires, plus a lot of things. There was a lot to do last year.
Good. Zoning ordinance, oil and gas. Yeah, one sentence about why.
Oh, why? It's the same ordinance that we adopted an ordinance in 2011, and this is a procedural change. There are no changes to this amendment. This reads the same as the existing ordinance, but re-adopting it to incorporate it into our zoning ordinance and to get it into our online code. Any changes to oil and gas regulations would be made to reflect changes in the field, in the industry, would be made as part of the comprehensive zoning ordinance rewrite that's going to be done over the course of the year. So this is a procedural thing just to get this incorporated into our current zoning ordinance and into our online code.
And Solicitor Stone is reviewing 3 or 4 fairly conservative changes to the ordinance that we'll address later this year. That most communities, Edgeworth being the most recent, changed theirs in a similar fashion.
So this is also a part of the zoning ordinance, so it will require the multiple advertisings and the public hearing and things like that. So do you want this to stay on the same path as this potential parking thing and do everything at once? Or do you want this to have its own path?
I'd do them both at the same time.
Yes.
Okay.
We need a vote on that?
Not really. I mean, it's written, it's the same, I can get the advertising. I will just gonna wait to advertise
All right,
until
good.
the
No,
parking's ready.
both at the
We'll do
same
them
time.
together. Okay.
There's good reason for both.
Well, I know Harlan did think we should do the oil and gas one as soon as possible, though. I don't know if that changes the
If they
board's
want it,
opinion,
You can
but
get the parking amendment, like tweak the wording on that as soon as possible so that they can stay on the same.
yeah, I'm not sure if there's a difference in if you can advertise them together or separately, if there's a difference in cost.
There is, but that's
Okay.
not important. It's just
Okay.
it's a different cost with the court reporter and just doing the procedures and everything, but.
Okay.
Maybe
Well, I
that'll
think we
give
can make
them- that'll give them
a
the
formal
initiative
decision
to
on
do the other one
that
quicker.
next week.
Sure.
Yeah.
Then Harlan can address it next week
Right.
if he feels that they
Yeah.
should, the path should be split somehow.
Okay.
Right. Citizen participation.
Valerie Gatus, State Representative. One of the reasons why I'm here today is just trying to make my rounds to the different the communities within the 44th District. Every beginning of year, we look at different sources of capital for your projects. And what I'd like to see is a wish list of things that I can keep on my desk. I think one of the things that we did earlier this year was provided $75,000 to Valley Ambulance to repave their parking lot. There's different pots of money, like through the gaming funds and DEP, environment, et cetera. And so just want to make that known to you that please keep in touch with my office so that we can advocate. I was at another council meeting and they had notified me that they had been denied for a request for something. It's always good to put that on my desk so that I can make sure that I advocate for you, and which is what you elect me to do. So
A thought for your notes, and I think you missed it when you chased the crowd out of here, but they raised a question about sewage in their part of the township. And actually at the Aleppo Township Authority meeting last month, there were folks from Glenfield and Swickley Hills wanting to look at the opportunity to bring sewage into our system.
yeah, exactly. I was just down with at Glenfield as well earlier tonight with that same issue. Yeah, unfortunately, we're in session typically on Monday through Wednesday on days, and that's why it's always good to keep me in touch because I can't always come to these meetings.
And I hope with the governor's interest in education that he's put a bunch of money out there to pay for our new high school.
Well, that was one of the things that I also pointed out, that I thought that in the governor's budget speech, that taking care of toxic schools. So I think there was a total of, I think, $1 billion for all schools throughout our state. So I'm definitely looking into that.
I don't think we're gonna spend $1 billion, but we'll get close.
The other thing that I saw on the agenda was the deer management. I know we had met with the folks at the game commission, and what they were suggesting is to try to coordinate the different townships to do everything all at once, as opposed to having one township take care of the deer population and then have them all run to another township and then go and do it that way. So if there's anything we can assist you on to do that, to make sure that everybody's doing it at once, that might be helpful.
What we kind of concluded, apparently the Manor is putting together an educational package, and we would put that on our webpage. So if something comes across your desk that looks to be a very effective education program for what to do and what not to do, we'd love to
Trying
see
to
it.
find a way to discourage feeders.
Right, please don't feed the deer. So,
But they're hungry.
right. And then the last thing that I understand, I talked to Commissioner Williams about Amazon, the trash that seems to be on the roads. I'm in touch with the Amazon representatives in a couple different levels, and we have in the 44th district there are 2 Amazon warehouses here in Aleppo and also in Findlay Township. So they've been actually very good at responding to my calls. So if there's anything that we can do to help you on that, they've been very responsive.
That's been our,
Would you give Valerie a copy of that letter? It's a good letter, but it shows the issues that we just met with them about.
Right. And I guess you met with the local folks, or?
Yes, local,
Okay,
yeah.
all right. I'll try to take this to the other levels as well, and hopefully we can get that addressed. And it'll be great to have them as good citizens and help us out regardless.
Well, and our chief of police has had 4 or 5 or 6 meetings with them. They've always been cooperative. Trying to enforce things, of course, is more difficult than just discussing them. But they've been very cooperative, so I think we just need to keep advising them as to the problems and making sure they don't forget.
Right, and I found that as well on the levels of the folks I've been talking to, so thank you.
Good.
So anything else that you have for me, you've got my phone numbers, and please feel free to call.
okay, thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Any other citizen participation? They all left. Therefore, we adjourn.
See you next week.